Hey, welcome back, everybody. Great to see you on this Thursday. Hope we're all having a wonderful day out there so far, and we've got a lot of very active weather in store for really, I think, much of January, but specifically the next week or so for much of the lower 48, as well as our friends up into Canada. And that includes big snow totals this weekend for the Northeast, icing potential at the same time for areas of the Southeast and Mid-Atlantic, severe weather this weekend as well as next week, flooding potential, and maybe even blizzard conditions going into next week as we have a major storm system likely to follow what is already a big time storm going into this weekend. Now, I will ask you, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. We're likely to pass 6,000 subscribers here, really likely today, which will be super cool to see. If you like the video, hit the like button and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. There's also something else I will add here at the beginning of the video, something new and exciting, I think, here for the channel. I'm adding a viewer-submitted photo kind of form here, and I plan on starting the videos with photos submitted from you folks on what you're seeing out there. I tell you all the time, your reports are so important, so why not give you the opportunity to really kind of share what you're seeing out in your neck of the woods. And you can find the form for that in the description of this video. I'll also post it pretty much everywhere else I can on the channel, and I'll also throw it up on my Twitter and Facebook as well. So all those links are kind of scattered all around the channel, but should be pretty easy to find here in the description of this video. With all of that said, let's go ahead and jump on into your forecast, as we do, again, have a good amount to discuss in today's video. Now, a couple different areas of active weather ongoing. This first blob kind of moving off the east coast. That is what brought some rain, snow, and sleet last night to sections of the southeast. Not anything crazy in the wintry weather department with that storm system, but definitely did bring some novelty flakes for some folks. Now, outside of there, though, the bigger story that we're seeing on current satellite imagery is this big swirl and area of unsettled weather back towards the Four Corners. That is our storm system that is likely going to bring potentially upwards of a foot of snow into sections of the Northeast this weekend. And really, honestly, probably the first big-time winter storm we've seen this winter for many folks kind of in and around the I-95 corridor. All right, taking a look at current radar imagery, watches, warnings. Again, that map is really filling in with a lot of active alerts out there. Widespread winter weather advisories for much of Kansas, Texas, and Oklahoma Panhandle, even into northern Oklahoma there. Again, that snow really beginning out for you folks as early as this afternoon. We also have winter storm warnings back up in effect for much of the higher terrains of New Mexico, with winter weather advisories for some of those lower terrains. And you'll even notice here, as we're getting a little closer towards this event, we even have some winter storm watches up for portions of the North Carolina mountains, kind of from Henderson County up through the escarpment there, where we could see some pretty big time icing with this storm system. Now, also in the Northeast this afternoon, we have had some lake effect snow showers moving on through, so a lot of you folks could be seeing some of that up there into New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and even back down towards the Pittsburgh area, getting in on some lake effect snow. Same story for you folks up into the UP of Michigan. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and time out kind of the next 48 hours or so for you from west coast to east coast, and then we'll dive into this first storm and then end the video out with a sneak peek at that second storm that could bring blizzard conditions going into next week. Now, again, this afternoon out west, the big story, we're going to have two separate areas of active weather. One, that's snow falling over New Mexico and kind of just the Four Corners in general, seeing some, pretty good snowfall rates this afternoon, but also up into the Pacific Northwest, some rain slapping the coast there and some snow in those higher terrains. And those higher peaks of Washington State really could cash in on some big-time snow totals here, I think, going into the next couple of days or so. Now, moving this further ahead into time, about the time the sun is setting tonight, still scattered rain and snow showers for much of the Pacific Northwest here, as again, we have pretty strong onshore flow there. But I think the bigger story tonight, again, is going to be this storm system cranking up over New Mexico, still bringing snow. And again, by the time the sun's going down, that snow could be working into the Texas and Oklahoma Panhandle, bringing some pretty healthy snowfall rates for you folks as well. Now, overnight tonight, that storm system out there continues to kind of gain strength over Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and even eastern Colorado there, dumping a pretty, heavy helping of snow for a lot of folks there, again, throughout the overnight hours of tonight. Now, by the time we're waking up tomorrow, again, still ongoing snow showers up here from the higher terrains of Nevada up through Idaho, Montana, and even back towards Yellowstone National Park, seeing some snowflakes. And same time, again, if you're watching in Oklahoma, much of the state going to be seeing some snow tomorrow morning, especially kind of this northern section. I think kind of down here in this area that you're seeing some snow, it could be rain. Definitely it's going to be fighting some warm air down here, and we'll watch out for that. But overall general idea here is snow for the Texas, Oklahoma panhandle up through Kansas, and rain for most other folks south of there through southern Oklahoma and into Texas over the day Friday before that system again kind of continues to work off towards the east, and we're then just left with some kind of snow showers left over for much of the higher terrains of the northern Rockies. All right, quick look at some snowfall totals in this part of the country. Again, the higher terrains are really going to cash in. In fact, we could see feet of snow here, kind of up here into much of these higher peaks into Washington state. And, as usual in this part of the country, this is all going to be very elevation driven. So kind of the best place to get exact snowfall totals is going to be from your local National Weather Service office. Definitely recommend checking that out. But again, just kind of summarize, highest peaks seeing, more snow, the lower peaks seeing a little less, and then the valleys likely more rain than anything else. Now, moving this on down towards the south and east, again, same story here as we kind of looked at with the Pacific Northwest. If you want, you can pause the video here and kind of try to pick out your community here. Again, though, just very elevation driven here, and I recommend looking with the local National Weather Service office in your area. And I'll even move my face out of the way so you can see it a little bit easier there. And I'll go back here so you can see that one a little bit easier too. Apologize about that. Again, though, just pause the video here. Alrighty. Let's move on to the east now, the next kind of 48 hours in this part of the country. Again, a little bit of a lull this afternoon, I think, for most folks east of the Mississippi here, just kind of cold and dry, as again, we have this very cold, high pressure kind of anchored over much of the eastern half of the country, bringing those nicer conditions for most folks. Now, that should last throughout today and even into the early morning hours of tomorrow. But by the time we're getting later on into Friday, here comes that next storm system out of the southern plains, and eventually this is going to move eastbound and finally up the coast and out to sea as we go later on into this week, and that is what's going to lead to some of these icing and snow concerns for a lot of folks. All right, so kind of moving this ahead into time a little bit, by the time we're getting into our Friday afternoon, pretty widespread snow showers for much of Kansas, Nebraska, maybe even up towards kind of Minnesota could see some snow showers, but the main kind of brunt of the system is going to be displaced further off to the south from Louisiana through eastern Texas and through much of Arkansas. Rain for most of these places, but don't rule out some snow here in Arkansas. Obviously, you're seeing a good amount on this map here. I think most of that, though, likely falls here into the Ozarks, into northern Arkansas. A place like Little Rock could get maybe a bit of a rain-snow mix, but I think more of a cold rain is likely there for folks in central and southern Arkansas before eventually, by the time the sun is going down Friday and we're getting prepared for the weekend here, widespread rain falling through much of Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, eastern Tennessee, western Tennessee rather, getting in on some pretty heavy dosing of rain here. And eventually going into about that midnight hour of Friday going into Saturday, that rain continuing, but you'll notice some snow now breaking out here into the Ohio River Valley. I think overnight Friday could see some snowflakes in central Illinois, Indiana, and into central Ohio as well. And by the time we're waking up Saturday morning, as far as this model goes out, this is when the storm really kind of gets its act together with ice in the mountains, and some snow still ongoing here through sections of Indiana, Ohio, maybe as far south as Kentucky, and also some snow showers getting going up here into kind of the Great Lakes region as well. All right, some snowfall totals here to show you, and then we'll kind of dive in region by region and time out the rest of this storm a little bit more for you. Down here towards Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, again, I think much of Kansas could see 1 to 3 inches of snow out of this storm system. And same story here for the Texas and Oklahoma panhandle, with locally higher amounts of 3 to 5 inches in those extreme western sections of that Oklahoma panhandle and the northwestern section of the Texas panhandle. Now, also, if you are kind of watching down here into sections of Arkansas and Missouri, again, could see some snow for you folks as well here. I think really, though, the Ozarks is going to be the greatest chance to see some accumulations of about half an inch, maybe for some of those folks. And same story up through much of the state of Missouri. Alrighty, let's go ahead and continue timing this out for you. We're going to pick up where we left off, starting in the southeast, just timing out some of this severe weather and rainfall, and then we'll kind of move up the coast with this storm as it continues to progress. So again, we left off on Saturday morning here. Still, I'm thinking very heavy rainfall for much of the southeast, especially kind of the eastern half of the southeast. Georgia, South Carolina, the Florida Panhandle. By the time we're waking up Saturday is where most of that rain will still be falling, or we'll continue to work on through for much of the day Saturday. But you will notice as we get later on into Saturday, and especially Saturday kind of afternoon and evening time frame, we start to clear out for much of this part of the country, minus some leftover rain, maybe even thunderstorms along the I-95 corridor of South Carolina and up into North Carolina. And potentially down here into central Florida as well, kind of from Orlando down towards Fort Myers, Tampa, and Naples, Florida, and Lake Okeechobee could be seeing some rain as well. Again, can't rule out a few rumbles of thunder here on Saturday afternoon as well. Before I think overnight Saturday and into our Sunday, we really clear out and nicer conditions kind of take over much of the southeastern part of the country. Now, severe weather will be a concern here, I think really starting as early as tomorrow from the Gulf Coast through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and into the Florida Panhandle. We do have a marginal risk of severe weather, including the threat of an isolated tornado or two, but damaging winds will really be the higher threat here for our Friday. And same story going into our Saturday as that threat shifts off towards extreme southeastern Georgia and through much of the Florida Peninsula, really from Jacksonville, again, all the way down towards kind of Fort Myers, Naples, and even just north of Miami there. Really having the best shot at some damaging winds and an isolated tornado or two, not out of the question. Alrighty, let's move this up towards the Ohio River Valley. Again, where we left off on Saturday morning here, we had some snow falling kind of through Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and we also had some, ice breaking out here in the mountains of North Carolina. Now, for now, I'm just going to focus on kind of the Ohio River Valley itself and not so much the North Carolina and Virginia mountains. We'll get there on our next map, so don't worry. But for now, let me just talk about some of these other states. Again, waking up Saturday morning, I think some snow could be falling through much of Indiana, Ohio, potentially as far south as Kentucky here. Now, the models have been a little more, I don't want to say all over the place, but kind of fighting with some different solutions here for you folks in Kentucky. And I have had a couple questions out of Kentucky as well. I think definitely some snow will fall at some point for a section here of east central Kentucky, but overall, impacts here should be relatively limited. This will be a very wet, heavy snow that's kind of melting as it hits the ground, and temperatures will be just right at or below freezing. So accumulations will be kind of tough to come by here, but could, once again, no matter what, still see some snow fall here kind of in that part of the country. Now, going later on into Saturday afternoon, again, snow could still potentially be falling here in southern Ohio, southern Indiana, maybe northeastern Kentucky here. That's where we'll have the best shot at some accumulation as this storm continues to crank up and move up the east coast before eventually going later on into Saturday afternoon and evening, things kind of calm down here and we dry out before I think another piece of energy could swing on through and bring another chance for scattered rain and snow showers overnight Saturday into Sunday, before that again kind of finally moves out after bringing some northwest flow for our Sunday. Snowfall totals in this part of the country, again, kind of, it'll be, really dependent on where you're at here, but this is including the kind of back-end piece of energy I just discussed here. I think the greatest chance of seeing some snow is going to be here into southern Indiana, southern Ohio, and northern Kentucky, with maybe an inch or so, but also, again, that back-end lake effect snow could bump up some of these totals, especially here where you're seeing those higher totals into northern Indiana and Ohio. Could see 1 to 3 inches by the time all of this is said and done. Again, though, just kind of a tough forecast for this part of the country, so again, consult your local National Weather Service office for kind of the experts who might be from your area a little bit more. Alrighty, now let's get into the Mid-Atlantic, kind of my home turf here, and what we're expecting in this part of the country. Again, it all starts overnight Friday into Saturday, and we'll look at this from South Carolina northbound through Virginia and Maryland, and then we'll discuss you folks in the Northeast here after that. Now again, by the time we're kind of waking up Saturday morning, this is when we have to watch for some kind of wintry mixed conditions to begin to unfold for a big section of the Mid-Atlantic here. I think anywhere from kind of Greensboro, North Carolina, down towards Hickory, Hendersonville, maybe even the extreme northern sections of upstate South Carolina, a place like Chesney, South Carolina, maybe Gaffney back towards Pumpkintown, Salem, and Travelers Rest. Some of these communities could maybe start with a quick icy glaze Saturday morning. Not out of the question, but the bigger concern for ice is going to be further off towards the north here. You'll notice this big area of ice getting locked in here into the northern North Carolina foothills, into the southern Virginia foothills. I think this is where we're going to have the biggest icing concerns, and that's also where we already have those winter storm watches up for that threat of some ice here. Again, starting Saturday morning. Now, if you're watching in a place like Boone or these really high elevations kind of in the North Carolina mountain chain, specifically kind of north of Asheville here, we could have some snow definitely out of this. I think it likely starts as snow for you folks, but that warm nose, again, is going to be coming in hard off the Atlantic, and I think just about everyone in the mountains is going to see at least ice at some point. This will not be a pretty perfect snow event for really anybody here, at least in North Carolina. It will be a different story further north, however. All right, moving this further ahead into Saturday afternoon, the good news is, again, that warm air is pushing in, so by the time we're getting later and later into Saturday, this kind of rain-ice line will continue to push northward. By the time we're getting into about noon, 1, 2, 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, we're rain once again for most of the Carolinas outside of those highest peaks, again, north of Asheville, now holding on to some ice. At the same time this is occurring, though, snow is breaking out through much of West Virginia, the mountains of northern Virginia getting in on some heavy snow here during the afternoon hours of Saturday, with ice, again, still holding on there in the foothills. Now, going later on into Saturday afternoon, again, we're now all rain from kind of southeast Virginia down towards the Carolinas. That ice that fell earlier likely melting at this point. Travel is getting better, although still I wouldn't recommend it because some of those kind of bridgy areas and places that are a little cooler than normal could still have some ice on the roads. But this is the time when this storm really begins to transition off towards the north. Again, you'll notice Saturday afternoon, heavy snow falling in western Maryland up through northern Virginia. Again, much of West Virginia still holding on to that snow as well, with some ice and rain trying to mix into those lower elevations. Now, by the time we're going into around the sunset here on Saturday, again, now that heavy band of snow continuing northward up into Pennsylvania, getting in on some heavy snow action. Even central Pennsylvania, back down towards the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, still holding on to some heavy snow. Now, if you're watching in a place like DC, I think you could start as some snow, then likely change to a mix of rain and snow, and then by the time we're going into Saturday evening, all of this warm air getting pushed northward is likely eroding that snow and ice, and we've just got a good old-fashioned cold rain for the I-95 corridor from Virginia through Baltimore and into Delaware. Philadelphia, I think, could start as some snow as well here. Again, going to be fighting that rain-snow line, though, here by the time we get into the evening hours. I think most of I-95 is rain here, from New York City down towards Philadelphia, back towards D.C. for much of the kind of evening and overnight hours of Saturday here, before things get a little more interesting after that. All right, looking at some snow and ice totals in this part of the country, and then we'll take a look at the Northeast. Ice-wise, again, something that we're very concerned about. A lot of folks going to get more than 1/10 of an inch of ice here, which is when things kind of begin to get a bit dangerous from much of the Virginia foothills down into the North Carolina foothills. Going to be kind of the hot spot here for some of those icing totals. If you're watching kind of north of I-85 in upstate South Carolina, back towards Charlotte and kind of Concord in this general area I have circled on your map, again, we could start with maybe a quick hour of some ice at the very beginning of this, likely when most people are still sleeping, but then it's very quickly going to change back to some rain. So if you happen to be a very early morning bird commuting at that time, definitely be careful. Could still see some ice that far south, but the bigger concern is going to be in those pink shaded areas on your map here through much of western North Carolina up into Virginia and even parts of southern West Virginia. All right, snowfall totals in this part of the country. Again, it's going to be more of an ice event for, I think, Virginia and North Carolina, but I think the mountains could still squeeze out a quick inch here on the front side before that change over to ice. But the bigger snow totals really begin up here towards West Virginia and into western Maryland, where we could see a couple inches of snow out of this storm system. As you know, we just hold on to that cold air a little bit longer. So definitely kind of watching that in that part of the country here. All right, let's move this on up into the Northeast, kind of where we left off here going into Saturday evening. Again, you'll notice very heavy wet snow falling through much of central Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania, into southern New York State, with kind of that rain-snow icy mix line right over I-95 from New York through kind of northern New Jersey here cutting through, and then just kind of right around the Philadelphia area, that rain-snow line once again kind of setting up shop, as we so often see in this part of the country. Now, as we go later on into the evening here, kind of closer towards midnight, I think this is when the storm really begins to intensify, and this is when we're going to get those big-time snow totals to begin. Specifically, I think here from northeast Pennsylvania through extreme northern New Jersey, and then eventually into Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts here, you'll notice as we move this through overnight Saturday into Sunday, this is where those snowfall rates are really going to pick up, while we're still dealing with a bit of an icy mix kind of in New York City and cutting right through the heart of New Jersey there, with rain to the south of there through southern New Jersey and into Delaware. Now again, this is about midnight Saturday into Sunday. You'll notice again it's snowing through much of the Northeast from upstate New York down through northern New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, up through Massachusetts and into Vermont and New Hampshire. Still dealing with that rain-snow line though right near New York City. Such a tough forecast there, as we again so often see here. But north of New York City through Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, southern New York State here, I think we're going to get a pretty good snowstorm out of this overnight Saturday, and eventually by the time we're going into the early morning hours of Sunday, once again very heavy snowfall rates in and around the Boston area. Specifically, the further you go inland, kind of the better here. And same story for northern Rhode Island and again through Connecticut. And that should continue through the early morning hours of Sunday, although snow becoming lighter, but now impacting more people on the backside with, still continuing snowfall rates throughout the day Sunday before the storm system finally kind of gets on out of here, going overnight Sunday into Monday. All right, snowfall totals for this part of the country. Again, it's going to be quite the picture for a lot of folks. I think the most snow that we see is going to be in this stretch from northeast Pennsylvania through extreme northern New Jersey, back through Connecticut, Rhode Island, up towards the Boston area. I think this circled area on your map has the best shot at seeing isolated spots get more than a foot of snow. Not out of the question, but widespread, half a foot to a foot. Again, kind of in this circled area on your map. If you're watching from some of the more major populated areas, New York City back down towards Philadelphia, again right on that snow line. If you're in kind of the downtown areas of those cities, you might only get about an inch of snow, and that might not even come until kind of the backside or right on the front side. But once you again go further and further to the north and west here, your snowfall totals will continue to increase. And same story down here through Baltimore, D.C., and into Delaware. Just not that much snow out of the storm, but just off toward the just off towards the north and west of these cities, those snowfall totals will likely increase. All right, that's the first storm. Again, a bit of a gauntlet there with that one. Now let's quickly kind of discuss the second one a little bit here before I let you go. So what we're looking at here are our troughs and ridges on our 500 millibar map, and you'll notice this kind of area of blue here in the northeast, that's the weekend storm. But what you'll notice back out west is a way bigger area of blue and even some of these pink and purple colors showing up. That is a very strong trough digging out of the western United States, and eventually low pressure is going to form off of that. And by the time we're going into early next week, we've got a big time storm system over the southern plains, and that eventually will kind of ride up here through the Ohio River Valley through the first couple of days of next week, and eventually up into eastern Canada by the time we get into the middle of next week. And this storm could be quite the doozy with a lot of impacts. And something else I'll quickly mention here on the backside is this other big area of those more wintry colors in the west. That could potentially be a piece of the polar vortex that actually breaks off there and slides into the western United States. So very active times ahead even after this first storm system. All right, quickly giving you a sneak peek at this storm system. Again, not going to go super in-depth on the details here, but I do want to mention a couple things here. This is going into the early morning hours of Monday. You'll notice low pressure beginning to develop at the surface back into sections of Texas, bringing with it snow and rain depending on what side of the storm you're on. Now, by the time we move this ahead, though, going into overnight Monday and into Tuesday morning, we've got a major storm system now over the southern half of the country with widespread flooding concerns in the southeast as well as severe weather concerns along the Gulf Coast. And eventually, as the storm continues to move off towards the north and west, this is when blizzard conditions become a concern for a lot of folks. I think next Tuesday likely going to be the peak of this storm. Again, potentially blizzard conditions for sections of Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, back down towards Missouri with big-time severe weather concerns. for you folks back into the Carolinas here, where we could see, again, some strong storms rolling on through, and then kind of flooding concerns all in between. Big time wind concerns here. You'll notice this is a very strong low pressure system. We'll have power outages likely with this. And by the time we're going into next Wednesday, this then turns into, again, a big blizzard kind of concern up into much of eastern Canada. Now, the good news is we do have time to kind of continue to unravel the details on this storm, and I'll keep you updated. We do still have one more storm to get through before we get to this one, as I've discussed. But just know this one's going to be impactful, including the threat of severe weather, which you'll notice on your map here. This is going into 5 days from now, next Monday into Tuesday. That's threat of severe weather from much of southeastern Texas through southern Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle here, all under the gun for some strong to severe storms. And that continues into next Tuesday for southern Georgia and Florida. And likely these areas will be expanded, and we'll have even more information on this, as we often see with kind of these general setups. All right, one more thing I will mention about this final storm are potential snowfall totals. Again, don't focus so much on the totals here as much as I want you to focus on the locations. Our ensembles have been very kind of gung-ho on a big area or a swath of the country here and up into eastern Canada that could see more than half a foot of snow out of this storm system, and potentially even up into the northeast. Although for you folks, I think it won't be an all snow event even if you do see snow, likely starting as snow, then changing to rain, and then maybe back to snow on the backside. It looks definitely like more of a kind of interior northeast threat than maybe the I-95 corridor. So again, just kind of a bit of a sneak peek there. Alrighty, well again, we've got a very active stretch ahead, a lot to kind of discuss here over the next couple of days. I still am planning on doing a live video probably tomorrow evening. I'll have to see if I have to work though. I'm on call right now, so we'll see if they actually call me in or not, but I'll let you know tomorrow if we're still planning on doing that live stream for tomorrow evening to kind of discuss this first storm and then give a sneak peek on the second storm. And then likely on Sunday, maybe even next Monday, we'll do another live stream on the second storm and whatever else may be looming after that one. Again, also do want to remind you, if you have any pictures, definitely submit those with the Google form in the description, or of course you can find that on my Facebook or Twitter. I'll try to post that around kind of really all over the place. With that said though, hope you have a great rest of your Thursday it is, and I'll see you all tomorrow.